So before you get going with this piece of work, the Bratislava Transect, you've got to make sure you've got, the key materials. We've got your A3 sheet of paper, nice sharp pencil just in case, a ruler and an eraser just in case you make a mistake, or rubber. Alright, so the other key things that you need are obviously the instruction sheet, because you're going to need to follow that step by step, and if you do that it won't be a problem. You're also going to need your map of Bratislava as well. So what does it say first of all? Draw a horizontal line across the middle of a landscape A3 sheet. So this is landscape, isn't it? Okay, if you do it this way, that's portrait. This is landscape. Fold it like that, there, and like that, there. And then you see you've got the makings of the start to put your line all the way across it. You take your nice long ruler. Okay, it won't work with a short ruler. Okay, you need a nice long ruler, and you can draw your faint line across it. You can go back over these lines later to make them nice and neat if you need to. Task number 2, divide the line into 8 sections. Well, the easiest way to do that is to divide it down the middle first. Okay, and again you can fold the paper if you need to, but as you can see this paper's already been folded because I was carrying it around. Okay, alright, dividing it into 2 sections there, 1, 2, and then again you can just fold the sheet like that, and perhaps help you out a little bit there, scrunching it in the middle. Okay, alright, so now we've got 1, 2 there, and again folding it up, and again just marking it on. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 now, and so we've got to divide each one of these in half again, so we could just quickly measure them up, couldn't we? Alright, so if that's 10.5 centimeters, dividing it in half will be around about there. Okay, and so there we go, mark that on, and do that for each section. So now we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections. Possible labels for each section, M7 to M14. Now those labels and the titles, they all come from your map. So it's worth having the map open now and start to think. We've got the letters across the top and the numbers, and they tell us the different squares. So the first square that you'll be working with is M7, which is this square, and then you'll be going across M8, M9, and then all the way down M10, M11, M12, M13, M14. So we'll be looking at a cross section or transect right across the city. So on our paper we've got the first section here, and all of that we'll be able to put information about M7, and then in M8 that'll all fit in there, M9 that'll fit in there, all the way across. Okay, so as it says on the instruction sheet, label them up. So this can be M7, M8, all the way to M14. And then there are suggested titles for each section, and they come from the map, and the areas are on the map. So for example, M7 here is Koliba. So we will call that area Koliba. So we can label it Koliba underneath. Then the next one along is Vinoradi. Then the next one, train station, Presidential Palace, etc., etc., as you go across the transect. Once you've got those all labelled up, it says above the line for each section, draw a pictorial illustration of what is in each square. And remember, what is in the square is called the land use. We can use the map, and we can use Google Earth to help us with that. Okay, don't forget that the key is really useful, because that tells you about the different land uses that you'll find within the square. So you should be using the key for this section and drawing your own pictures. So in 7, for example, we've got roads, we've got forests here, you probably can't see it, we've got a public building, and then we've got these other sort of pinky buildings which would be houses, and these are sort of smaller houses separated, so we've got separate houses there. So those are the things, the land use within the square. So I've got to think, okay, how am I going to demonstrate that? So pictorially I can just draw a little house, can't I? And then I can perhaps draw a road. And then for the forest I can draw a simple tree. Okay, so I'm not looking for a work of art, but you might be able to see that a bit better there. Okay, I'm drawing little pictures to represent the land use. And again, I would need to do that in each one of the squares as I go through the map. Once we've done that, it says number 6, draw a line graph above your illustrations to show the percentage of buildings which are residential along the transect. Remember, residential is housing. So I've got to look and I've got to estimate what percentage of buildings are actually used for housing. And I think out of all of the buildings in this square, the first square, M7, there's these public buildings, the dark red ones, but I think all of the others are used for housing. They are not big, they look like houses to me, so I would say 95%. So I can just draw the axes for my graph from 0 to 100. Okay, 0, and I can mark it off. So for example, 50% would be there, 100% would be there. Along the bottom I can draw the bottom axes all the way across, because we're going to do this for each square. And so for the first section I think it's 95%, so we can label that 95%. We can draw across a line. So just showing you there, we're starting to make the line graph. We've drawn the axes here, 0 to 100%, and I've put the first line in showing that 95% of the buildings in Koliba are for residential use, for housing. Then I would look at the next square, and I think again it's quite a high percentage, so I would say 95%, so I would probably continue that line across. But for the next one I would think actually we've got things like the railway station there and some other public buildings, so I would think for the next one it's actually going to be lower. I would draw the line lower. So the graph will move across the page. Okay, but again, I won't draw it all on, but that gets you started. And then underneath, so along this section, and again, you might want to just extend this right the way down so we can divide it all up. Okay, we might want to divide things up on the line graph as well. All right, this is where we put the description and explanation. So for each section, what land use is there, describe it, and then try and give reasons why. So in Koliba, most of the land use is for forests, but there are also roads and houses. That's your description, and you'll be writing that in there. I think most of the land use is forest because it's on the edge of the city and near to the protected forest around the city. But there are also some houses because people like to live in these areas. They are nice, pleasant environments to live away from the city. Something like that. So description and explanation. That should help you out. That should get you going.